Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I bring you amazing people from around the world in crypto and blockchain, founders, entrepreneurs, artists, executives, everybody. And it is a treat today. I have an amazing guest. His name is Shawn Cheng. He is a partner with ConsenSys Mesh. Shawn, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jamil.
Very welcome. So to kick things off, let's do that. I'll ask you, what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Shawn Cheng, and as a partner at ConsenSys Mesh, previously I was a generalist VC for Gary Vaynerchuk. And prior to that, I was in advertising and marketing through both social agencies, influencer marketing focused agencies, creative agencies, and digital agencies like Vayner Media, BBDO, and Razorfish. So I would say a lot of those, experiences have led me to part of my investment thesis as it stands today, but also influences how I think about the world, how I think about technologies as they grow and proliferate, and then also impact people's day-to-day lives. So even though I don't think I've really had the same job ever twice, I do think that with each evolutionary step and each sort of growth opportunity that my previous roles have really helped inform where I'm headed and what I'm focused on now.
Awesome. So let's talk about ConsenSys Mesh, right? What is that all about, and what is your mission and goal to achieve that mission?
Absolutely. So Mesh is part accelerator, incubator, and kind of holding company for many of the earliest investments. So we as a company started as a venture production studio out of the early seeds that were planted around the Ethereum ecosystem. So it was founded by Joe Lubin and many early Ethereum believers that wanted to build the infrastructure and the necessary tools to really attract thousands and thousands of other builders. And so we've continued that mission of becoming a champion for Web3's global adoption and leaned heavily into things beyond infrastructure. So we've expanded that into DeFi and into NFTs, gaming, and also DAOs. And so currently, we deploy capital, and then also we partner with these builders to participate in these Web3 native networks called DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations. And so our core thesis right now is focused on the power of these protocols, the power of these DAOs, and the potential of how identity and reputation can really unlock and open up the doors to something like a decentralized Uber or a decentralized Airbnb. And we're acutely focused on the problems that and kind of barriers that might prevent us from realizing what those things actually might look like in the future. And so we as a company have spun out companies like ConsenSys Software, which is close to 900 people, has taken venture backing, and also is building household products from Web3 like Infura and MetaMask and Truffle, and continues to be expanding into institutional products like MetaMask, institutional for custody, as well as DAO native participation into amazing communities like Bankless and MakerDAO. And so for Mesh or ConsenSys Mesh, we continue to support those key positions like ConsenSys Software, Tribute Labs, which powers many of the world's largest and most successful investment DAOs, Gnosis, which helps to create the Gnosis Safe protocol as a multi-sig, and also securing the broader internet around virtual and kind of digital assets related to crypto, and then also amazing communities like Gitcoin that are growing and sustaining open source software. So those are some of our positions out of the 180 or so positions that we've invested in over the last 7 years or so.
So Mesh isn't the parent, right? Or where does it fit in? Where does it fit into the overall structure? Is it like, is the investment
Yes,
arm?
it is the parent. Yeah, yeah, and also has investments. Um, we run those programs and probably have about 4 investment programs. So direct investments, like I just mentioned, an accelerator called Tachyon, which we've done about 6 cohorts with, an incubator, which is the venture production studio, whereby which we walk with founders for a longer period of time. That's currently focused on DAOs and identity. And then, yeah, kind of an experimental bucket. So at Mesh, we like to keep things weird and also want to continue to push the envelope on things that are not quite just pure play VC and not quite just something that might be a enterprise SaaS company. We really take the lens of, well, what is valuable to end users? What is interesting and pushing the technology forward? About half of our organization of about 75 people are all in applied R&D. And so we are still financing and contributing a lot into initiatives that would benefit the space broadly, but not necessarily directly benefit our our pockets. And so we really do believe in the long-term impact and the long-term benefits of investing in R&D. And so that's another big thing that is a part of this constellation of initiatives. But we are the original entity that spun out ConsenSys Software. And so Mesh is about 7 years old, and we continue to kind of support these various investment programs as an LP, as a GP, as an active and direct investor ourselves, and then want to continue to support this group and constellation of amazing companies that wants to bring this future more quickly to the world.
Awesome. So I want to follow up on a few things you said. The first thing I do want to follow up on is I'm interested in your accelerator program, right? You mentioned Tachyon, and I believe your accelerator program is like 3 months or so, or 4 months. How does it work, and what have been some of the latest successes that you've seen?
Yeah. So Tachyon is the oldest Web3 accelerator out there. The last 4 cohorts we've done in amazing partnership with our friends over at Filecoin, and also many of the people that contribute to the protocols coming out of Protocol Labs and IPFS, and the constellation of companies that are working on all the adjacent products that are related to decentralized storage. And so we are very excited to do more of those things. We are going to be DAOifying the accelerator. We will be helping to find a virtuous and kind of a self-sustaining system whereby which investors, advisors, founders, mentors, and people that have been a part of these previous 6 programs to kind of come together and really allow for the DAO to grow the value there and to continue to attract more founders to build in this sector. So more recently, in the last program right now, the team is going to be headed out to ETH India. They were just at ETH Lisbon. And then before that, we're at DevCon. And we have been throwing these things called Sigma Houses. These Sigma Houses, led by Gabriel Anderson and Shawn Johnson, have been kind of our first testing ground around how the individual community members that have played an amazing role in building these companies, financing these companies, supporting these companies, can come together and gather and also talk to the next generation of founders. So we've got a lot of new folks reaching out to hear about when our next cohort will be launched. But that accelerator continues to kind of meet founders where they're at. And so when you think about Tachyon over the life of it, they have been immensely successful at helping many of our teams kind of raise their future financing rounds, and then also continue to address the needs of what the average founder has. So many companies within our incubator previously, or the venture production studio, were highly technical first-time founders. And through the accelerator, which is not as long as like a year or a few years of walking with the founder and really limited to about 3 months, we've upped our kind of offerings for what founders need today. So given that we're in a bear and going more than likely into a recession, what are the things that our founders need in order to succeed in some harsher conditions, versus what does a founder need when conditions are better and in a bull run? We really try to retrofit the programming so that when founders leave and they graduate and they join the thousands of other men and women that are building Web3 companies, that they're well prepared to figure out whether or not they need to address or build the things that are very hot button topics, like should we launch a token? Should we launch a DAO? What type of Web2 business models are acceptable if we want the network to be owned by the end user in its final state? So those are some of the key things that I would say differentiate us from some of the other accelerator programs, both from Web2 and Web3. And we also really try to ensure that they are thinking about things in a very disciplined manner. So we incorporate things like design thinking, and we also incorporate really some basic fundamentals around growth, and also pair kind of Web3 expertise with Web2 benefits, and Web3 kind of growth strategies around helping to validate and also better grow their audiences and their user bases. A couple of the most recent companies that I would call out that we're really excited about are companies like Mona. Just got back from Marke, Texas, where the art blocks and glitch communities from Collab Currency just held a incredible time of about 500 people to celebrate generative art. And Mona, as a metaverse kind of society for high-end 3D art, was a part of an amazing launch with Tom Sachs and the Rocket Factory, and they were able to showcase many of these key spaces and their new rock collection, which is equivalent to that of buying land and metaverse land and space in his community, and also allows for people to have collectors to have a direct kind of relationship with the rockets and the Franken rockets that many people have known and loved. So Mona continues to build massive integrations. Look out for some of those integrations also to be seen at Miami Basel. We have deep collaborations with the Gateway and NFT Now, as well as other portfolio companies like Decrypt. So look out for Mona and how they're continuing to allow for creators to sell their spaces in the form of NFTs, and also build broader integrations with more of the other builders and assets and NFTs that are coming to light. One other one I'll call out, which it's hard to pick, obviously, from all of our beloved companies, is Huddle One and WeatherXM. WeatherXM is focused on token incentivized networks around weather stations. So you can think of them as a data collector and provider to people that would really benefit from localized weather. And so we're going to see this for telematics with cars. We're going to see this with dash cams with Hive Mapper. We're going to see this with mobile networks, even with Helium's 5G network and Pollen. And so we're very bullish on these networks being subsidized and continue to grow with many, many more use cases, so that in aggregate, the end user also can participate in each of these new and exciting places that they're not used to participating, because they end up being the product themselves versus actually being a participant and an owner of the network. And then the last one I'll mention is Huddle 01. So they are revolutionizing video conferences. And so As people are using things like Google Hangout or Zoom, can you use something that's built in a Web3 native fashion? So logging in with your MetaMask account, but then also allowing for you to have your NFTs featured. Perhaps you want to use your NFTs as a skin or an augmented reality kind of lens that you want to place on your face, like in Snapchat. There's more and more use cases that are being born out of synchronous videos. So we look forward to Web3 native solutions starting to, replace Web2 business models and hopefully allow for the users of these products, these power users, to own parts of the network. And so look out for more with Tachyon DAO and the Sigma houses. If you're going to be out in India, please reach out to the team over Twitter. We would love to meet you and love to say hi.
I love it. I've been waiting for a platform that could take that would be competitive to YouTube, in the Web2 and in the Web3 space. So, yeah, that sounds really awesome. And it also sounds awesome to have better accuracy in weather. So I think yesterday was 70 degrees and today's 40, and no one's getting it right. And I'm like, I would love to be able to see it get it right.
Yeah.
But you said something interesting earlier, and I think you were trying to say the word define, and you said the word DAOfine. So I want to ask you, what do you see as the true power of DAOs, and what are you trying to build forward, and what do you envision as far as the power of what DAOs can do?
Yeah, I mean, I think DAOs represent a new way for humans to organize through a greater degree of incorporation of technology itself and trust systems and smart contracts. And so I think more and more people are starting to explore DAOs. In my mental model around the taxonomy of DAOs, I see there being investment DAOs, product DAOs, service DAOs, and social DAOs. And each one of them is really defined by the primacy of mission. So, what is the primary thing that this group of people has come together to accomplish? And can software and smart contracts produce a better result? I think a lot of people romanticize this technology and miss the forest for the trees because they're focused so much on whether or not these key features or the key benefits of using decentralized technologies is a proxy for the outputs, that they lose sight of whether or not is this actually working better than what we currently have today. So with investment DAOs, is this generating more capital than a more traditional approach, whether it's a syndicate or a venture fund? Unless it's more performant, I don't know if it's necessarily something that is should be paid attention to just yet. I think there are lots of investment DAOs also that are not necessarily thinking about how it lives in a in current meat space. So whether or not it should be wrapped in a legal entity, whether or not the members of it should be actually going through KYC, whether or not the DAO itself should be issuing K1s at the end of the year. There are a lot of things that people want to jump to immediately, a Web3 native instance of it, without acknowledging that we still live in a world that has these legal entities and a lot of these rules that can be seen as superpowers, not necessarily straitjackets. And so I really do think that examples like the Lao, Flamingo, Neon, Unicorn, Ready Player, Coco DAO are all focused on thematics that have a high potential to be even more performant than some of the best VCs in the world. Product DAOs, the primacy of mission there is making a product more valuable, but obviously when you ask an engineer versus a chief revenue officer versus a designer, they may give you a different answer as to what is the main driver of value for that product or service. And then service DAOs, I think, are unique in that exchanging a product or a service for time or money is a little bit different because you're building a two-sided network. And I think there are lots and lots of amazing things that you can do to better serve buyers and sellers of a particular product or service. And then lastly, social DAOs, I think, are unique in that we do have a new generation of things that might look like Burning Man, might look like Summit Series, might look like Soho House, or even old school social clubs that might be much more service oriented, like a Rotary Club or even like the Lions Club. And so I think the main benefit of many of those social DAOs may be around identity, community, belonging around a particular cause, whether it might be me identifying, and obviously having an Asian background and wanting to elevate certain causes that are related to Asian Americans and Asian American founders and investors. And so I think DAOs have an opportunity to not necessarily just to replicate or replace existing groups, but also to create a more trustless and efficient way to make decisions as you identify maybe with each type of DAO. And so we're writing the book and flying the plane, as we speak, whatever euphemism that you want to use. But DAOs start to allow for more people to have egalitarian power structures to grow and accomplish those goals, no matter what the group decides at the inception of a formation.
Awesome. You're the first person who broke it down into different categories of DAOs. So thank you. Helps me understand that better. So, yeah, I want to shift gears a little bit because I want to go back to something
Sure.
you said, but I'm going to go back to it a little bit later. But I want to ask you first, to lighten the question, is this: what was your experience like working with Gary V?
Yeah, working with Gary and AJ and Marcus and Claude and the whole team over there at Vayner was life-changing. I mean, Gary was the first one to kind of take a chance on me kind of wanting to make a career shift into venture. And when I had joined, I was one of the few people coming from a more traditional advertising background. I remember, trying to help the team set our sights on even bigger goals before we were starting off in a lot of these client relationships as just the digital agency or the social media agency, and helped much of the team start to set our eyes on becoming the agency of record, which ultimately is one of the key kind of vendor partnerships and relationships that big brands look to for innovation, for how you form your budget. And so you see those relationships nurtured and grow to the point where now many of the largest brands in the world trust VaynerMedia as the place to go when they want to do something in Web3. So it's no mistake that you see folks like Anheuser-Busch have Nouns glasses or Cryptodes with their Super Bowl commercials, and even major projects like World of Women and other notable kind of Bored Ape activations starting to appear in some of these big brands. And a lot of that is because of the Vayner family and also Gary's influence there. In transitioning over to kind of investments, working with Gary was incredible. I think I ended up focusing on frontier tech broadly, primarily because Gary didn't need a ton of help from consumer and enterprise. He had amazing people like Phil Toronto and AJ that were also sourcing amazing deals, and then also incredible partners from RC Ventures and Stephen Ross with folks like Carrie and also Matt Higgins. And so Gary, in his kind of continued entrepreneurial pursuits, had people kind of always around him pushing amazing and new ideas. And I think the most awesome thing about his desire to continue to take chances on new things is that more than half of them actually work out, which, a hit rate of 50% is pretty incredible when you look at a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of companies that have innovation teams that, maybe only 5% or 2% of things kind of work out. But he's always investing in the people around him and helping to empower them to launch their dreams, whether it's an amazing new wine brand like Empathy Wines, whether it's taking key people on his team and launching VFriends, being next to such an amazing entrepreneur and someone that really helps to open up doors and empower individuals to kind of take a chance on their own dreams was awesome. And even though I think a lot of people see Gary for the YouTube personality or the in-your-face kind of loud critique and kind of public speaker, I think the thing that I took away in having him as a boss was just how much care and love that he took to really sit with many of his direct reports and spend time on getting to know who they were and invest in their future and their developments. And so I think that's been a major key to his success, is ensuring that the people around him want to continue to grow, and that he also can find a way to participate and support them in their dreams. So super thankful and grateful to be a part of that community and the Vayner alumni family, or the Vayner fam, as we like to say it, and the alumni network, some of which have actually started to make their way into Web3. Very excited for that to continue to grow, especially with big platforms like VFriends and much of the work from Vayner 3 and that whole ecosystem.
Awesome. So that's a good guy. Gary V's a good guy. And I don't want to shift gears to talk about a bad guy, but some bad things happened last week in crypto around around FTX. And you mentioned, people say we're headed into a crypto winter, or when we head into a recession. What do you think is the FTX, the fallout of FTX? And we have to get into detail what they did, right? But what do you think the fallout's going to be, and what do you think the media impacts are going to be, and how this industry is affected, and how do we move forward positively?
Yeah, that is something that's unfolding in real time as we speak. I don't think we've fully seen everything shake out. I believe that the second and third order effects of FTX, and even in the most recent $400 million backdoor drain, still being researched and kind of worked through right now. And so once criminal charges are placed against the team and the company, which I'm pretty certain that might happen, we're going to see that probably used by many people in the political realm to probably justify a little bit of overreach, when much of our industry has self-regulated or wanted to ask for frameworks in order to really comply, but then also ensure that people are safe and that they aren't losing their shirts. And so I think as we see FTX kind of the culmination of this series of really awful events between Terra Luna and Celsius and Voyager and some of the other parties out there, I really do think that we're going to see those types of approaches become places where people are much less willing to try as their first touch point in crypto, which we had always hoped that C2Fi or CFI was going to be this mass adoption on ramp, and that those folks would really help expand those users into Web3 native ways. But now our industry is focused on compliance, regulation, and also focused a lot on Web3 native things that people just didn't seem to care about before, like self-custody is all of a sudden and decentralization as key features. Year after year, after working in the space for over 5 years or so, people have wanted to say that those things are just too esoteric and those things are just too far from being valuable or immediately applicable to an end user. But maybe in facing this pain and seeing many people get taken advantage of or now have all their funds in some sort of arbitration process for the next 5 or 8 years with FTX. Now we might see self-custody and using things like a hot wallet in MetaMask or a ledger or Trezor, and putting stuff into a cold wallet as something that should be more and more commonplace. And so $150 for a cold storage wallet is a pretty cheap price to pay for peace of mind. And I think the industry is going to bounce back eventually, but we're going to go through, I think, a substantial amount of pain over the next couple quarters, and then see these events being used as the primary justification for things that may not necessarily make sense for what this technology ultimately means for society, which is greater degrees of power and freedom and autonomy from centralized authorities that aren't fully transparent. So maybe we start to move towards systems that are much more progressive and proactive about sharing about what assets are in their treasuries. So some sort of dynamic verification of assets actually being available. But I also think we're going to need a possibly a protocol or a system that allows for us to automatically verify the total amount of liabilities that a company or a system has within it. And so the adage of moving from further away from just trusting for the sake of trusting because of fancy credentials or he said, she said, or a system that really caters to people that already have power may move further and further towards verification. And so is this the second version of what Bernie Madoff had built, and the cartel or cabal of people in his family and in his inner circle at all these other regulatory bodies? Is this what is happening with FTX and SPF? Potentially, but we're only 3 days in, 4 days into even the discovery of these things, and so I'm hesitant to say what the ultimate impact is, but I definitely don't think this is the end of it, or we're anywhere close to the bottom of what this means for our industry as a whole yet.
I would agree. It's going to be interesting. But it brings me back. What you just said, it brings me back to what you said earlier, right? And I want to talk about that. You said your company helps founders discover what they need today in harsh conditions, and it's going to be a harsh condition. And you help these entrepreneurs and founders discover, not on a technical level, but on a personal level, how to learn and grow. So what do you think those founders need in the harshest conditions, especially now? And how do you plan to help them develop those soft skills?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the accelerator, in contrast to the incubator or traditional VC or growth fund or even just direct DAO deals, I mean, from an accelerator perspective, I think we're going to probably think about the macro conditions as a way to inform which projects we select. And then based upon, which sectors have a higher propensity to succeed, I think that's also something that we'll have a lot of fruitful conversations with founders on. So even before they enter into the program, there are hundreds of people and founders that apply. And in those applications, we have hundreds of conversations with those builders, with those founders, to help validate what is their key market insight, what is the core assumption that has led them to want to build whatever product or service. But in this market, we would help them think through systematically, what product or service that they're building. Is it the best time to build something that's a custodial solution in the CeFi space or a new exchange? Maybe not, and unless there is some sort of crazy unfair advantage. And is there asymmetric information, or is there an unfair advantage that would allow for them to build something that the space actually needs? So I think some great examples of more mature companies that took years for their thesis to play out around having better versions of compliance, and also just protections, and also computer forensics, are probably companies like Chainalysis, Elliptic, and also TRM Labs, which are helping to ensure that users' funds are better protected, and then the people that are actually using nefarious tools to actually wash money and use them for nefarious reasons, that government agencies actually have the ability to focus on the right things. And hopefully those initiatives like chain abuse by TRM Labs ends up being a cross sector and multi-agency supported effort, and things like developers that are building privacy preserving code in companies like Tornado are not the primary focus, and that statements around super shady coders are not necessarily the thing that is kind of this scary thing to prop up as a reason why regulators and folks that like to posture a virtue signal and say that they want to help, but have dragged their feet for a decade to bring about the right types of frameworks and guidance ultimately around how best to ensure that we preserve innovation, but don't strike down all the things that are happening in the space. So I think we're going to bring that perspective to those founders. I think we're going to bring the perspective of what we're seeing work and work well. We'll give them kind of a look at and direct connections to our 180 positions. We'll point towards amazing new ecosystems of developers that are focused on those things like security and privacy out of MetaMask, and initiatives like LavaMoat, and then also privacy preserving tools like Aztec protocol or Lit protocol, and allow for people to start to think about, okay, I'm not just going to have to be reliant on these Web2 kind of meat space systems, but I'm going to have to start to think about building products and services that people truly value and enable a more decentralized future. So a lot of what we end up spending time on with these founders in this new cohort is how to assess these problems and really validate them, and hopefully build things that are truly leading towards those end results, and hopefully are not being built on foundations that might be like quicksand, or leading to ultimate results that are not favorable, or not something that they would actually want the world to look more like. And so we'll shift from more of a rosy colored perspective to one that's more anti-fragile, and allow for founders to kind of make up their own minds as to where they want to dedicate their lives to, and also try to attract more users and builders to as well.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah, this has been eye-opening, and I enjoyed speaking with you. And I want to thank you very much for your time. And I have one last question, and it's how can people find out more information about you, about ConsenSys Mesh? If they want to join the accelerator, how can they apply? How can they do any of those things?
Absolutely. So if you are coming to one of the next ETH Global events, don't hesitate to reach out to Tachyon XL on Twitter, and look out for the Sigma House. I know many of the founders, mentors, and previous investors of the 40+ companies through our last few cohorts would love to meet you while out there. And even if you're not at those events, please reach out over Twitter or go to tachyon.xyz. If you want to know about Mesh, about our efforts around investment DAOs, our efforts around identity and reputation, go to mesh.xyz and reach out there. And if you've got a question personally for me, feel free to reach out publicly or in my DMs. I'm Shacheng on Twitter, which is SHACHENG. And I look forward to meeting and talking to anybody that's really, really interested in building a company of great consequence in this space, and hopefully brings the Web3 future nearer and faster than even before.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Jamil. Thanks for having me.